Yo, what's up, YouTube? It's your boy, Sports and Fitness Rants, man. I'm back with another video for you guys. Back for some more information, so make sure you guys listen up. Hey, listen, do me a favor, click the like button and subscribe to my channel, please, guys. I'm a new channel. I've only been on here for a couple of months doing this. I'm trying to get the information out to you guys. Listen, guys, listen. I appreciate you guys watching my videos. I appreciate any feedback. And, you know, listen, I know my videos are no frills. I don't have any fancy backgrounds. You know, I don't have any, fancy clips. I don't have any slides. I don't have these, stats popping up. You know, I don't really have anything, as far as like, some of these other channels have. I'm just want you guys to listen to what I'm saying. Don't worry about how my videos look. Just listen to the information that I'm giving you guys and what I'm saying. And go and do the research. Go watch videos. Shout out to Tremendous Upside, the YouTube channel. You guys should check him out. He's got a lot of old games. I'm talking about the entire game, man. He's even got the commercials from back in the day. Check out Tremendous Upside, man. There's no reason for a lot of you younger guys to not be able to go out and do some of the research, especially, like I said, if you want to have a educated opinion on basketball or any sport in general. You should definitely look into some of the history and, read some articles. Listen to some YouTube videos from people who know a little bit more about certain generations than you might. For example, like, I don't know anything really about the 70s or the 60s, or the 50s or any of those kind of eras previously. I grew up watching 80s and 90s basketball, so that's what I mostly speak about because I remember a lot of that. And I remember watching these guys play, so I know, who they were. But what I do, though, is I do want to learn about some of this stuff, so I would watch some of these videos. Shout out to Too Raw for Sports, another YouTuber. He has a lot of knowledge and stuff, man. So check him out, Too Raw for Sports. He has some good info about guys like Will Chamberlain, guys from those kind of eras. So, the reason that I'm making the video today, this video is going to be about, it is going to be a couple of parts, maybe like a 3 or 4 or 5 part thing. This is going to be part 1, but I want to start putting some respect on some of these guys from the 80s and the 90s that people try to are downplaying now. Guys like J.J. Redick and guys like Gilbert Arenas, the Nick Wrights, the Shannon Sharps. A lot of these people are trying to downplay the 80s and the 90s era specifically, and we know why that is. They have their agendas, but a lot of it, listen, I don't mind opinions. Opinions is what makes for good basketball debates, good basketball discussions. What I don't like and what is not good for the sport of basketball is people just flat out making up lies, just telling you straight lies to the masses and selling it as if that's the truth, when it couldn't be more far from the truth. Because really, at the end of the day, what they're trying to do, folks, and we can't allow this to happen, they're trying to change history. They're trying to rewrite the history of basketball. The history that's already happened, they're trying to go back now and rewrite it. That's exactly what Scottie Pippen was trying to do with his book and with all the nonsense that he was saying because he was, upset about the Last Dance documentary or whatever. You can't rewrite history, Scotty. You can't rewrite history, Nick, right? You can't rewrite history. It's too late, guys. It already happened. What we witnessed happened. I watched Michael Jordan. I watched the Chicago Bulls. I watched the Knicks I grew up in New York. I'm a Knicks fan, guys. All right? You see my hat, back-to-back champs. I was also a Michael Jordan fan of the 90s, though, right? And I grew up watching basketball in the late 80s from my dad, and we were Knicks fans, right? We're Knicks fans, man. So I had to watch a lot of Michael Jordan. I had to deal with a lot of Michael Jordan because the Knicks and the Bulls had a lot of battles, man. But we have to not let these guys try to rewrite this history. We can't allow them to do that, man. They're trying to change these narratives, trying to change the story of NBA, man, about things that happened, and they're trying to make it seem as if these guys weren't that great. They weren't that good at basketball, 20, 30 years ago, which is crazy when you think about it. And the thing about it is that the guys from these past generations, man, these past eras, and that's the thing too, guys. Just because you played in an era is different, we're not saying that it's better. I'm not sitting here saying that the 80s and 90s basketball was better than the basketball today or better than the basketball in the 70s or the 70s was better than the 90s or the 60s was better than the 50s. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that the eras are different, so you can't be judging players from 80s or the 70s or the 60s or even the 50s and then trying to compare it to the players of today, right? It's a completely different game. Not saying it's better or worse, it's just a completely different game. So when someone like a JJ Redick makes his idiotic comments about Bob Cousy, you know, and saying all this nonsense about him being these guys were, you know, were plumbers and they were taxi drivers and stuff like that, and that these guys didn't know how to dribble a basketball and they couldn't shoot and all these kind of things. It's really sad. Like I said, it's sad for the sport because they're being lazy. They didn't do the research and they don't know the history. They don't know why the guys dribbled like that. They don't know that Bob Cousy and players, like a Joe Fulks and a George Mikan, you know, and some of these guys from back in these days, you know, what's his name? Bill Russell and Will Chamberlain and, just these guys that you hear their names, but people don't really know about them. So, think about it. These guys had to play basketball in the 40s and the 50s where there was nobody to teach them really, right? Basketball was just been invented. It had just been started. And these guys were the first players of their kind, right? So imagine trying to learn a sport that's never been played before, and you are the guys that have to basically learn on the fly. You're basically doing on-the-job training, right? You're trying to learn about a sport and play it at the same time. So how efficient and how effective are you going to be? What do you know? You've never seen a crossover. You've never seen an alley-oop. You've never even seen a dunk before. You don't even know, you know what I'm saying? Like some of these guys that started back in the 40s and the 50s, they were like 5'8", 5'9", and they were playing in the NBA. So to knock these guys, and they were pioneers, to knock them, like I said, it's lazy and you're uninformed about why they did. These guys dribbled that way. People like to make fun of these guys in these videos of, oh, look how they dribbled. They only had one hand. They couldn't dribble with one hand. And that might be true, whatever. But the fact of the matter is the way the game was officiated back in those days, in the 50s and the 60s especially, you couldn't get away with any of that stuff. The things that these guys are doing today, they wouldn't, even in the 90s, they wouldn't have been able to get away with that stuff back then. They would call a carry on you every single time. So they had to dribble with their hand on top of the ball the way that the rules were stated. But you wouldn't know that if you didn't, right, look into these things, all right? So in this part one here, the reason I'm doing this is I want to focus on some guys from the 80s and the 90s that don't necessarily get a lot of light, that people try to downplay. Because what they're doing is they're trying to tear down the 80s and the 90s era for a specific reason, and we all know what that reason is. They're trying to bring down Michael Jordan's peers, to make it seem as if he dominated a weak era or lesser players or non-athletic players or whatever they want to say. Anybody that watched those eras, 80s and the 90s specifically, that wasn't the case. And the fact of the matter is that the 90s was actually the most popular time of in NBA history. The most popular. The ratings of those games, obviously, due a large part into Michael Jordan, but not just Michael Jordan. The NBA at that time had a lot of stars, man. A lot of big-time players, which made the league very popular. So, people can say whatever they want, but like I said, the league has never been more popular than it was in the 90s. So what I want to do in this first part here is I want to mention about 3, 4, 5 players that people don't never talk about, or when they talk about them, they try to knock them as if they weren't anything good, and that, like I said, in relation to, Michael Jordan, his era, and trying to downplay his greatness anyway. So the first guy I want to mention is Jeff Hornacek. Shout out to Jeff Hornacek, man. Jeff Hornacek was a very gritty, tough defender. I think he averaged around 14 or 15 points per game for his career, maybe like 3 rebounds, something like, 4 or 5 assists a game. Those are pretty, decent numbers. I think he was like 6'3", 6'4", about 210 pounds. And his best years were, on Phoenix, going into his first couple years on the Utah Jazz, where he was averaging about 20 points per game for about 3 or 4 seasons there. I think he had a couple seasons where it was like, 18, 19, 20, and like 18 points a game, respectively. And Jeff Hornacek was a really good shooter. It's a pure jump shooter, probably like an 85, 86% free throw shooter. I believe he, somewhere around, 40% from 3 or whatever. But like I said, just a pure jump shooter, man. If you left him open, more than likely he was going to knock down the jump shot. And he was a good team, a good pairing with a guy like a John Stockton and a Karl Malone on those Utah Jazz teams of the late 90s. And people try to downplay Jeff Hornacek as an also-ran or some little guy that Jordan would dominate or whatever, when in fact, Jeff Hornacek played Michael Jordan very tough. Um, and you know, it wasn't easy a lot of times for Jordan to score against Hornacek, because Hornacek played very good position basketball against Jordan. He would read. These guys would study Jordan, man. They would. You know, these guys, like I said, they studied film, man. They took these things serious, man, because they knew that Jordan was a handful, and that their job was to try to slow Jordan down and to make it hard for him. That's what these guys wanted to do. They wanted to make every possession difficult for Michael Jordan, bringing the ball up the court, trying to get in post position, all these things they wanted to make very hard for Jordan to try to wear him down throughout the course of a game. And Jeff Hornacek, like I said, was very good at playing position defense on Jordan, where a lot of times he would guess right where Jordan was going to go. Like I said, he would be in a good position. So shout out to Jeff Hornacek, man. Very underrated defender, very underrated overall player, man. Put some respect on Jeff Hornacek's name, man. That dude was, like I said, he was a legit basketball player, man, all right? Just a really good veteran glue guy to have on your team. The next guy I want to talk about, Gerald Wilkins. Gerald Wilkins, another guy, you know, very athletic, just a gritty defender too. Another guy who played Jordan very difficult. I would venture to say that outside of Joe Dumars, who I believe played Michael Jordan one-on-one the best, right? Joe Dumars, I believe, played Michael Jordan the best one-on-one defense. But I would say that Gerald Wilkins, he might be the guy from the games that I watched, from I remember, you know, him playing Michael Jordan very tough, man. Very tough. Especially when he was on the Knicks, man. When he was on the Knicks, and I believe that was 90, maybe 90, 91, maybe 92. I can't remember that he was on the Knicks. You know, he was on the Knicks in 89, 88, and stuff like that too. But when he was on the Knicks, man, because eventually he would go to the Cleveland Cavaliers, and they played the Cleveland Cavaliers in the playoffs. I think he was on the Cavaliers in maybe 92 and 93 when they played them. And, you know, he was supposed to be known, he was labeled as the Jordan stopper. If you guys remember back in those days, the Cleveland Cavaliers acquired him from the New York Knicks to be the Jordan stopper, because Michael Jordan had always tormented the Cavaliers in the postseason. So they brought Gerald Wilkins in to be the Jordan stopper. That was his label, the Jordan stopper. Okay? And, you know, Michael Jordan took it personal, because that's what he does. And, you know, he went out and destroyed Gerald Wilkins. But he didn't destroy him. You know, they won handily. I believe it was 4-2, I believe in that series. But anyway, but Gerald Wilkins made Jordan work. And this is the thing. These guys made Michael Jordan greater. In basketball, the greater your competition, right, the better it makes you. If you play basketball with a bunch of guys that are less than you, you're not going to develop. But because these guys were grinders and gritty and hard-nosed defenders, they made Michael Jordan get that much better. So Michael Jordan's competition is what ultimately led to him become Michael Jordan. You know, that's what the Detroit Pistons did to him. It's their fault. It's their fault. So shout out to Gerald Wilkins, man. A very good, a great defender. He was a high flyer. The guy would dunk on you. You know, I've seen him dunk on Jordan. I've seen him dunk on Pippen. I've seen him dunk on numerous guys. Obviously, he was the brother of Dominique Wilkins. Everybody knows who Dominique Wilkins is. Gerald Wilkins, the lesser-known brother of Dominique, was a better defender than Dominique was. Like I said, just a hard-nosed, tough defender. He knew his role, and he accepted his role. So shout out to Gerald Wilkins, man. A guy who's been forgotten about and underappreciated, and they try to downplay these guys, man. Gerald Wilkins. Another player that is forgotten, Dan Marley. Dan Marley, man, a.k.a. Thunder Dan, man. That's his nickname. So like a lot of people who never watched Dan Marley play, or don't remember Dan Marley, they might think of Dan Marley as a spot-up shooter or some perimeter guy, when in fact, like I just told you, his nickname is Thunder Dan. And the reason his nickname is Thunder Dan is because Dan Marley would take it to the rim on you, and he would dunk on you. He'll put you on a poster, Dan Marley, man. Dan Marley was about 6'6", about 220 pounds. Like I said, he was a very tough, gritty defender. I believe he won 2 all-defensive selections in his time. I think he was an all-star one year. Just a very, like I said, just good overall, solid overall player in the NBA. But a guy that people try to downplay as if, you know, he was just some guy that Jordan was guarding, that guarded Jordan, that wasn't nowhere, that shouldn't have been guarding him. And we all know, if you watch the Last Dance documentary, about how Jordan and why Jordan took the 93 finals personal as it pertains to Jerry Krause, the GM, and his feelings towards Dan Marley and his praise of Dan Marley, the defender. So Jordan took it personal, was like, all right, he's a great defender. You think he's a good defender? I'm going to destroy him. And obviously we know what Jordan did in that 93 finals. He went berserk on those guys. But that's not to take away from Dan Marley, man. You know, that's just the greatness of Michael Jordan overcoming. You know, great offense is always going to beat great defense, guys, right? We all know that. Everybody knows that. All right. So, you know, it's not a knock on Dan Marley for Michael Jordan to average 41 points per game in the finals. That's just Michael Jordan's greatness. All right. But Dan Marley was a very good, gritty, tough-nosed defender, man, where, like I said, a lot of these guys, they played very good position basketball on you on the defensive end. They would always be in the right position. They would draw charges. You know, they would put you or make you have to take a difficult shot because they would guess right on you. So shout out to Dan Marley, man, a solid overall veteran, tough-nosed guy, never backed down from the challenge and stuff, man. Another guy I want to mention, Danny Ainge. I want to throw Danny Ainge out there, man. I don't want to make this video too long, guys, but I want to throw Danny Ainge out there. Danny Ainge, another player. And the reason I want to throw Danny Ainge out there is because I remember some time ago, it might have been a couple years ago, I was on Instagram, and I saw people, there was a photo of Michael Jordan playing against the Boston Celtics, I believe, in '86. And there's been a lot made by people in, I don't know if it's this generation. It probably is because, like I said, they've never seen these guys play, so they don't really respect them. So they say crazy things as, you know, oh, this guy or that guy's not good because he was white. Or, you know, they'll post a picture of Michael Jordan going for a layup and all the defensive players around him are white guys. And they'll be like, oh, Michael Jordan out here being guarded by senators and lawyers. So what you're saying is that all lawyers and senators are white people? Or are you saying that because someone is white, they're not athletic or they can't be good at basketball? You see how stupid that sounds, guys? Like listen, man, I'm not going to get into this nonsense with white or black or Asian or, you know, Indian or, you know, whatever your nationality or background is. If you believe for 1 minute that because of the color of someone's skin or the color or the background that they came up in, as far as their nationality or their race has anything to do with their athletic ability or their abilities to play basketball at a certain level, that's ridiculous, man. If you get to a certain level, like the NBA, I don't give a damn what color you are or what kind of background you have, man. You are obviously there for a reason. Now, obviously, in the NBA, there's levels. We all know that. But to downplay somebody because they're white or because they look a certain way is ridiculous, man. Listen, I played street ball with all kinds of races and all kinds of shapes and sizes, man. I played with little midget people, you know, or guys who are short. I'm not a tall person. I played against tall guys. I played against heavyset people, skinny people. It doesn't matter. I've seen people on the court that I thought in my mind, there's no way they're going to be able to make it up and down this court. And these people were dominating. Okay? So never judge someone based off of their skin and their race and the way that they look, especially when it comes to athletics and sports, guys. All right? Just don't do it, man, because they said you're going to get exposed, man, and you're going to look real silly. So back to Danny Ainge, man. A lot of people be knocking Danny Ainge over the years that I remember seeing because he was a white guy or whatever. Same thing with Dan Marley. Same thing with Jeff. That's why I brought these guys up, the Jeff Hornaceks, the Dan Marleys, and the Danny Ainges, to put some respect on these guys' names. Damn the race. Damn the skin color. Okay? Let me tell you something about something about Danny Ainge that you may or you may not know. Danny Ainge grew up in Oregon, right? He went to BYU. In high school, Danny Ainge was All-American in 3 sports as a junior. Danny Ainge is the only person in the history of Oregon to be named All-American in 3 sports as a junior. He was All-American in football as a wide receiver, okay? So think about the athleticism you have to be an all-state wide receiver in Oregon, right? Or an All-American wide receiver. Think about the athletic ability you have to have. We're talking about wide receiver here, guys, all right? He was wide receiver, All-American. He was All-American in baseball, and he was All-American in basketball. So for people who say that Danny Ainge was an unathletic white guy or that Michael Jordan played against unathletic white guys, that right there is debunked, guys. Debunked. Anytime you hear someone say that, guys, bring up that Danny Ainge right there, man, all right? He was a 3-sport All-American in Oregon. The only one as a junior in the history of that state to be All-American, and only person to be All-American in 3 sports as a junior. So Danny Ainge was a very good basketball player, man. I just talked about his athletic prowess or whatever, but Danny Ainge was a very good basketball player, man. Danny Ainge was actually played professional baseball for the Toronto Blue Jays, I believe. So he could have been a professional baseball player if he wanted. So the athletic ability and the skills are there for Danny Ainge, man. So just put, like I said, put some respect on the man's name and shit, man. And don't be trying to make it seem as if, you know, he looked this way, so he wasn't athletic. But Danny Ainge was a gritty player. Every team Danny Ainge was on, he was a key contributor. Danny Ainge, I believe, is a two-time champion, and he was on the Boston Celtics teams, the last two championships for the Boston Celtics, a key contributor for those teams. Danny Ainge was on the 92 Blazers team that were in the finals against the Bulls. He contributed to that team. And then he was on the 93 Phoenix Suns team that was in the finals against the Bulls, a key contributor to that team, along with Dan Marley, right? So you had Dan Marley and Danny Ainge on that one team, two guys I just mentioned in this video. So Danny Ainge was a very good shooter, very gritty defender, man. Put some respect on Danny Ainge's name. Now, one thing I want to mention before I end the video, guys, I'm running a little bit long here, and I'm sorry I rambled on. But listen, I know a lot of people will look at guys like a Jeff Hornacek or a Gerald Wilkins or a Danny Ainge, even a Dan Marley, and they'll say things like, oh, these guys don't have any accolades, or they were never on all defensive teams. Dan Marley was on 2 all defensive teams, I believe. But they'll say things like that. But what you have to understand, folks, and what you have to look at is the players at those positions that played in the 80s and the 90s. There was a lot of competition for that all-defensive team, folks. A lot of competition for that all-defensive team. When you're talking about the 80s and the 90s, especially at the shooting guard position, it was stacked, man, with all-time great defenders, man. So you had guys like a Joe Dumars, a Michael Jordan, obviously, right? They dominated the 90s, right? Or especially the early 90s. Joe Dumars and Michael Jordan in the early 90s dominated the all-defensive teams, okay? So but then before that, you had guys like Sidney Moncrief, Alvin Robertson, and Michael Cooper. I just named 5 shooting guards, guys. 5 shooting guards that are all-time great defenders. Those guys' names I just mentioned are all-time great defenders. They're not good defenders for their era. They're all-time great defenders at that shooting guard position. Those names I just mentioned are 5 of the top 10 defensive shooting guards of all time, okay? And they played in the 80s and the 90s. So for guys like a Gerald Wilkins or a guy like a Jeff Hornacek or a guy like a Danny Ainge to make an all-defensive first team at that position, it was very difficult. Doesn't mean that they were not good defenders. That's just how stacked and loaded the defensive side of the ball was for shooting guards, man, okay? And I didn't even mention a guy like a Gary Payne that came in the 90s that dominated the point guard position defensively, right? Along with a guy like a Jason Kidd, who was an all-time great defender that came in the mid-90s. So when you think about things like that, it was hard for some of these guys to crack that defensive team. So you can't always look at accolades or lack thereof and judge a player based on that, okay? So let's stop looking at the numbers or just looking at the numbers and look at the totality of these guys and understand the era that they played in and the kind of guys that they were going against for some of these accolades, man. All right? I'm sorry I went a little bit long, guys. This is going to be part 1 of put respect on these guys' names from the 80s and 90s that have been downplayed to try to lift some of these other players today. So they try to downplay these guys from the 80s and 90s, man. And we're not going to let it happen, guys. We're not going to allow them to rewrite history. You know, it's just, we can't let it happen, guys, all right? We all know the truth. We have to keep the integrity and the honor in the sport, all right? So please, thank you for watching my video, man. Please click the like button and subscribe, guys. Any questions, comments, concerns, whatever it is, you guys, feedback, I welcome it all, man. Appreciate it, guys. You guys be good.